Hello and welcome to Beauty Doctors by Cocoona. I am Dr. Sanjay, your host for today, and I have a very interesting personality with me today. He's a celebrity surgeon, Beverley Hills plastic surgeon, famous in UAE, and this is my team says a hot plastic surgeon. So let's welcome Dr. Charles Galanis. Dr. Charles, welcome to the
Thank
studio.
you for having me. I don't know that I would call myself an interesting personality, but I'll take it. Okay, thank you for having me.
Let me introduce Dr. Charles. So Dr. Charles is double board certified plastic surgeon, American board qualified plastic surgeon. He specializes in breast and body, and he has a lot of innovative techniques, and he uses technologies to do body contouring and sculpting. And not to forget that Dr. Charles is exclusive for Cocoona. He'll be here with us every quarter to provide his expertise and services to us. So let's welcome Dr. Charles. Welcome to Dubai, welcome to UAE, welcome to Cocoona, and welcome to Beauty Doctors Show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's start getting some questions. And I have very interesting questions for Charles tonight. Charles, my first question is, what makes Beverly Hills the global capital of cosmetic surgery and treatment?
I think, if I had to guess, I think it has something to do with Hollywood being right at the doorstep. I think a lot of sort of the desire to optimize beauty and the focus on aesthetics is a spillover from sort of the Hollywood culture and the movie star culture. I think that, but in the subsequent decades, I think it became just a growing force within just American culture and the culture at large. I don't think, the desire or quest for beauty is something unique to America, and I don't think it's something unique to recent decades. I think it's always been there going back millennia across civilization. But I think, when you're talking about the United States, there is a tremendous amount of resources available and a tremendous amount of interest, which just sort of further propelled this to be kind of a forefront. And Beverly Hills, again, being at the doorstep of Hollywood, was the logical place for that to continue to grow and take root.
Right. Okay. Tell us, why did you choose Dubai as a city to visit and practice?
So my sort of journey to Dubai began years ago, and I was actually approached in Beverly Hills by a mutual friend, or by a friend who is kind of mostly based in Dubai. She was an expatriate from Europe, and she kind of saw my work and was sort of curious if I'd be interested in going to Dubai. And what's interesting is when I was a surgical resident at Johns Hopkins, this was decades ago, we actually had a rotation through Dubai. Now, this was Dubai before the Burj. This was Dubai when it was a road and a few buildings. And I didn't go at that time. We had a choice between there, and you could also go to the UK. And so I had thought about coming to the Arab world before, and then knowing what Dubai had what Dubai had become over the last, decade or so. Everyone knows about Dubai now, and the influences stretch, to America and elsewhere, whether it's social media or not. So I was certainly interested, and I was curious about it. And the other thing geographically is, I have a lot of patients who travel. About 30% of my patients in Beverly Hills come from out of town. And, for the most part within the United States, but also globally. And being in Dubai, I had an opportunity to access a completely different population, which otherwise really it wasn't reasonable or practical for them to come to Los Angeles. And combine that with the fact that social media and the marketing that we get with social media has made the world very small. You meet people just like that who are on opposite sides of the globe, and it's not just other providers. I mean, patients now who are in the Middle East or in Asia or in Europe, and it's just much easier for them to come to Dubai. So I saw an opportunity to go to a city that I was interested in, where I had friends. It's just a fascinating city, but also provide services and also see patients that were a different population from what I could access in Los Angeles.
So let me ask you a trick question here. What do you think Dubai has that Beverly Hills doesn't when it comes to cosmetic surgery?
That's an interesting question. I think the biggest difference is the patient populations are different. I think that you have, and also, the patient populations are different. And then there's a breadth of providers here that are coming from a lot of different influences, because you have providers who are maybe trained in the Arab world, but you also have providers who are coming from the States. You have providers coming from Europe, Asia, etc. The United States providers are in Beverly Hills. It's pretty homogeneous, mostly American trained, American surgeons. So you have a typical population of providers there and a very different population of patients. So I think it's, different in that respect. I'm not saying better or worse, just different and unique.
So you've been visiting and operating in Dubai for a while now. What is the difference in plastic surgery trends that you see in UAE versus in US?
So I think the two, the things that I talk about between the two cultures, both in Southern California, United States in general, and Dubai, my feeling is a lot of the trends are becoming a little bit more uniform worldwide. And I think part of this is because I think media is uniting the world a little bit. So people are having the same influences, they're absorbing the same influences when they weren't before. They were kind of separated a little bit more. The trend I've been seeing more, and I don't know if this has been your sort of take on it too, is a move towards a more natural aesthetic. I think the idea that plastic surgery was synonymous with an artificial or fake look is a little bit passé. And I think most people now that I see are looking for something that it kind of leaves people guessing a little bit. It's enough of an enhancement that they see a difference and they feel better about themselves, but not so much that it's announcing to the room when they walk in that they've had plastic surgery. So, and I see that both in California, even in Beverly Hills, and I also see it here. It's rare that I see patients coming looking for overly exaggerated results.
I'm going to ask you some tough question.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to pick between Dubai and Beverly Hills, which city or which country has tougher and stricter regulations for patient safety, you think?
At the end of the day, I'm going to sidestep the question a little bit and say, ultimately, it's up to the surgeon to make sure that the patient is safe. So I don't care where you're operating.
Yeah.
It's up to the surgeon to make sure that the patient is a safe candidate for surgery, that the facilities are up to par, that the equipment is up to par, that the support staff is sufficient. So I can't say one is safer than the other, because that would mean that I'm not doing my job as a provider to make sure I'm keeping my patient safe. So in my experience, I certainly feel comfortable here, just as I feel comfortable in my home base in Dubai or in Los Angeles. But I will say some of that too is doing my due diligence and associating myself with places that I think share that sentiment, that have that same sort of passion for safety that I do. So, the buck stops with me. So if something isn't safe, it's on me. It's not on Dubai or Los Angeles.
Very well said, Charles, really. So what's the difference in patients that you see here in Dubai versus you see in Beverly Hills in terms of, the body demographics, in terms of the psychology?
I think it's actually quite similar. My experience has been they're very similar in all respects, which was a little bit of a surprise. I think that there is a perception, I think, when I was coming here, that you'd have a modest population, a lot of the population being very covered in sort of the traditional garments that they'd wear, where they wouldn't have as much consideration for X, Y, or Z in terms of body surgery, but that hasn't been my experience. So I think whether it's the patients I see in California who are the mothers with multiple kids and looking for the mommy makeover, their mentality is the same, their goals are the same. It's made my job easier a little bit, and that I don't have to adjust too much when I'm talking to a patient here versus talking to one in Beverly Hills.
So do you find a lot of cost difference in surgeries between Beverly Hills and LA and Dubai?
I think, what I tell people is, listen, there's four things that go into cost. I always talk to patients about this. There's anesthesia. There's the facility fee. There's random equipment costs, whether it's implants or devices. And then there's the surgeon's fee. So there's going to be differences between Dubai and the US in terms of facility fee and anesthesia, no question. I think those, the US is probably going to beat you guys in terms of being more expensive as it relates to those. Surgeon fee is entirely on the particular surgeon's experience, their demand. So even within Beverly Hills, you're going to see a wide variation. Not everyone in Beverly Hills is expensive, just as I'm sure not everyone in Dubai is expensive. There's going to be a range. And I think a lot of that range is predicated on the experience of the surgeon and how much people really want to work with that particular surgeon. So I think some of the costs are less here. As far as what makes up the majority of costs with surgery is always going to be the surgeon fee. And I think if you have a surgeon that's in demand, you're going to probably be paying for that. So whether you're here or in Beverly Hills, that's going to be the case.
So how many patients do you see in Beverly Hills from this region, from the UAE, from the GCC?
When I'm in my Beverly Hills office, these days, none, because they know I'm coming here. Okay. So it was, previously it was a small percentage, but the population that I would see that now is more access here is the Asian population, whether they're in India or whether, in the Pacific Islands, kind of those areas. It's more accessible for them to come to Dubai than LA. I'd say there was around 10% of what I was seeing in LA was coming from that area that now, they can just see me here. The European clientele also that I used to see in LA I see a lot of them here now. So it's sort of simplified things and kind of diverting kind of the populations in a way that I think the patients appreciate it. I think they appreciate that accessibility a little bit more and makes their aftercare a little bit easier.
So let me ask you last question now. I'm going to put you on a spot here. Why did you choose Cocoona over all the centers in UAE?
So that's a good question, and I have a very honest answer for it. And one of the things, when I was first approached about coming to Dubai, I told them one of my main concerns about traveling and operating, where I would come in town for maybe 1 to 2 weeks, is what happens to my patients after I leave. Now, keep in mind, in Los Angeles, when I have patients who travel there, they stay in town a week or two and then they leave. So it's kind of the same thing. But for me personally, if I was going to come here and take care of patients and then leave, I needed to feel comfortable that when I left, there were people that I trusted who I knew could give good care in the unlikely event the patient would need something. Fortunately, that's not a common thing, but just for peace of mind from a safety standpoint, that was important to me. And when I was kind of looking around, you and I were introduced, and your reputation, I know who you are as a provider, and the professionalism, the integrity that you exhibit with your work. And it was important to me to have colleagues that I trusted, that I knew were certainly plenty skilled, plenty experienced, where not only when I'm gone, they could help if needed, but even when I'm here, if there's, sometimes you want to talk with colleagues, bounce some ideas off, kind of collaborate in a way that ultimately what you're talking about is giving the patient the best experience, getting them the best result, and getting the best safety. So Cocoona had that for me. I just felt comfortable with the providers I met in a way that I felt the continuity of care would be strong. And I've been very pleased with kind of the support staff in that respect, and just sort of making it more of a seamless experience for my patients, a safer experience for them. And it gives me peace of mind when I'm on the plane back to Los Angeles that I know my patients are still in good hands. So that's what brought me here. So here I am.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you very much for that. And thank you for being in the show today. Thank you for spending your time and, valuable, sharing your expertise with all of us here. Thank you very much.
My pleasure, my friend. It's good to see you.